Good evening. So, for today's video, we're going to briefly talk about the IDA key components, which is going to be a small summary of how I made my brochure. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is the parent/guardian student involvement in the IEP process. So, in my personal experience working as a teacher, first year, and I had students who were special education. So based on what I can recall, with the IEP process, it's all about making specific goals for students to meet whenever it comes to whether it's academic or motivational status. And sometimes it can have it to where the students are trying to meet specific goals in like classes, like for example language arts. This student wants to read 2 books per day or finish reading 2 books at the end of the week, and that way they can start creating new goals, whether it's wanting to do chores or having ways to practice like doing math or figuring out how to work in science or social studies, things like that, to create goals even for academic purposes as well. Now for referral. Now with the referral, pretty much excuse me, with creating a referral, it's all going back to how exactly is that child meeting their goal, or how they're being written up for certain purposes, whether it deals with academic or behavior issues, to where we need to figure out what is the pattern, what exactly is going on. Evaluation. So by evaluating the student, we're able to uncover certain areas that student may have trouble in, whether it's learning how to comprehend, not being able to break down the math problem, science, not being able to explain the difference between biotic, living and non-living things, social studies, not being able to understand the full history of the main ideas on certain topics. So it's all about understanding why they're being evaluated, what are some growths, and what are some areas that need to be worked on. Eligibility. If the child is eligible for IEPs and also accommodations according to their IEP, then it will allow them to receive free services, aka we call that free appropriate public education. They can be easily available for it. But if they break certain rules that causes them to not be eligible, then that's when things will have to go based on district or board, where they have to make it approved. But if they're not making that approval, then that's when it's going to be issued to have those students or that student eligible. Components of the IEP. So components, that's pretty much just talking about how breakdowns of goals, like I said before, are going towards IEP, whether it's going for academic or skills. So that's pretty much what I explained earlier. Expectations for communication between the teacher, school, parent, or guardian. Now, in my personal opinion, it's always important to keep communication clear with the parents, guardians, so on and so forth, because if you leave them in the dark, they're not going to know exactly what's going on. They're like, why didn't you tell me that my child was having behavior issues, or that they're starting to spaz out, or they're not doing this and causing them to do that, to where they have no idea what's going on because we're not keeping them informed. Because there is a difference in between when a student is accountable for their actions as well as a teacher, including parents, and we have to do our part so that way they can do their part at home. And keeping that consistency in communication is going to help them succeed. Now, moving on to the next topic, discussions of the ethical responsibilities a teacher has to uphold the integrity of the profession of the IEP process. So pretty much going back to procedures. With those procedures, it helps to keep goals, not just for the student but for the teacher as well, to make sure as they're evaluating them and they're doing your annual reviews, all that stuff, it keeps track of how much progress have they made, or is there something we need to change, so that way they know exactly what's going on. Because if it's going to be our responsibility to make sure this child is successful in school, then we have to do everything we can to hold that responsibility. Because altogether, with the IEP process, it's all about creating realistic goals to help the child succeed in school. Even there's certain areas they're struggling in, they still have a chance to make those changes if we create those realistic goals. And that way the parent can be involved to where they know exactly what they can do. The specialist, IEP specialist can add in their comment, the principal can, the teachers, the special education teacher, they all add in their comments to where, okay, if we get this child to do this, maybe we should see some progress. And we can say to the parent, okay, maybe if I do something like that, could it possibly help? That's when the teamwork comes in, and that's how everything collaborates like it should. So that's the whole process of how IEPs work. I do thank you for listening to the video. Hope you have a great, blessed evening. Good night.